Hey, what's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the Brown Gent. In today's video, we're gonna talk about Zomedica, and as you probably saw from the title, they have some incredible news. They are reporting preliminary results for their fourth quarter and the full year 2022. Before we talk about that, let's just kind of zoom out and see how Zomedica has been doing. And I'm just going to sort of bring this back a little bit. If you don't know what this app is, or you find it interesting, you want to check it out, it's called TradingView. I think it's one of the best sort of apps or websites that you can use to track your stocks, use a lot of indicators. So like I have my RSI up here, I have my pivot low, my pivot highs, and like what those mean, like pivot high and pivot low, it basically says what's your low point and what's your high point. Like at what point does it sort of turn, and then what point does it turn around again? It's sort of like each time you'll notice like the stock will zigzag, right? So what's the bottom, what's the top? Because when you look on stuff like Google, you miss a lot of the moves because they just show you the average of the day. And when you zoom out far enough, they just show you like a dollar amount for each day, right? So you kind of lose like what was the range, because over here it shows 29 cents for Zomedica. In reality, I think it went up to like 35 on this day. Now, just to remind everyone, Zomedica is a pet healthcare stock, or a pet healthcare company. Its stock initially rallied so much due to truforma, and over the last year and a half, they have added to their company, adding things like PulseVet and other such companies to add value. And they use that capital that they raised during the bull market to sort of feed this. So just if you're watching this after the fact, which I expect many of you are, that's sort of what that is. Now, if we zoom in here and just see Zomedica over the last few months, let's just take a look, right? So we were sitting here in November 11th of 2022. We hit sort of like we were range bound between 21 cents and 25 cents. And from this point, we broke down all the way down to 15 cents, right? So that's a 10-cent drop, which was 40% of its value over the course of a month. And you know what? It wasn't just Zomedica, it was pretty much all speculative stocks in that sector. Since then, however, and this is sort of why we talk a lot about dip buying and averaging in, we saw a monumental rise. If you bought in at this point, at the pivot low of 15 cents, you could have rolled it all the way up to 30 cents or 33 cents, pretty much doubling your money. So like a lot of people sit there and talk about how they're down bad or they're down big in stocks. It's all about finding sort of opportunities to move. And recently, as you can see, we've been somewhat range bound. We're sitting around the 27-cent level, right? And as you can see, we have the EMA 800 line. We're like pretty much trading around there. And whether or not we go up or down really depends on next week. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But before that, what I will say is I hope that all of you who are watching this video, who are interested in Zomedica, you're checking in on the Investor Zomedica website, and you can sign up for their alerts by going here, clicking on Investor Alerts, typing in your information over here, and hitting subscribe. Whenever there's an update, if you do this, they will send it to you. Now, let's say you don't do that and you just go to the investor's website for Zomedica because you saw some sort of news pop up, or you saw the stock, change either pre or post market. Checking the news releases, you can really see sort of what's been going on and what the catalysts are. And primarily the catalyst right now is this preliminary results that were reported for the fourth quarter and full year 22. So how about I'm going to spend the next little bit talking about what this means, okay? So let's just go right into it. Revenue for the fourth quarter of 2022 is expected to be approximately $6 to $6.2 million, which is an increase of about 50% when you compare it to quarter four from 2021. And as suspected, because we're seeing it in the sales data, it's really been driven by PulseVet sales, right? And yes, we have a bit of inclusion from Assisi Products as well, which is your latest acquisition. If we don't just look at Q4 and we look at the full year, we're expecting our revenue to net out around $19 million. And that would be an increase of 350-ish% compared to 2021's revenue. And once again, of course, it's PulseVet sales. I remember when I used to do these deep dive videos that I would prep like 8 hours and record and edit and record and edit. And I remember looking and it was like 95% of revenue came from PulseVet sales. Like I said, when Zomedica acquired PulseVet, I think it was the end of 2021, it started to right the ship of this company. And since then, they've been doing so much better. While their stock hasn't really improved in its price, what this has really done for the company is it's really started to build some value. Hey, home, how's it going? Long time. I hope you're doing well. So gross margin is expected to be 72% for the full year. Now, I just want you to understand what that means. Certain costs are sort of taken away from the revenue. So like, let's say I am selling a product and it costs $100 when I sell it to the consumer. So you buy it from me for $100, but it cost me like $28 to sort of acquire it, right? Like not all the other expenses, but sort of my cost of goods sold and stuff like that. Then I'm making $72 every time I sell it to you. And that is really what the gross margin means. So high margin businesses are what you want to sort of look to invest in, because when you have a low margin business, you don't have money and you don't have flexibility. So when you have to either bring your product price down or cost increase, it's pretty bad. The other thing I would say here is cash equivalents are expected to be $156 million at the end of the year. Comparing that to the last quarter, September 30, 2021, we were sitting around $158.5 million. So we lost $2.5 million worth of cash, like in terms of cash burn. What's good to see here is if you compare this, like revenue per revenue, quarter by quarter by quarter, you'll start to see the amount of cash burn coming down. And what that means is their net loss is getting smaller. And one of the things you should notice here is actually they don't show you the net loss. They don't show you expenses yet because this is not final. And in order to determine whether or not this was a very good or very positive situation, we have to see how much the $6 to $6.2 million that they got in revenue, how much it cost them in terms of expenses. We have a very good indicator here with the gross margin being 72%, but it doesn't capture all costs. So hopefully we'll find that out and see like if there was anything else that they used to raise cash. Otherwise, I expect the net loss to technically be $2.5 million. But like I said, we'll see. So the preliminary data presented in this press release have been prepared by and are the responsibility of Zomedica's management. And what that means is they have to go through an auditing process, because I'm sure you guys remember what happened with Enron, or you've heard of what happened with Enron. They were just making up numbers and reporting them, and they didn't really go through the full auditing process. I think their auditors were actually like working for them. I forget exactly how it works. That's why it's super important to have independent auditors to sort of review all of the financial information and then put a bunch of sort of disclaimers or things in the financial report, which we're expecting to get, according to this, on a Form 10-K around 4 p.m. Eastern, Wednesday, March 15th, which is about a month from now. And of course, there's going to be a conference call for us to review the results live at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. So Larry Heaton, who is Zomedica's CEO, what he had to say was the revenue growth accelerated through 2022, reaching $6 million in sales in the fourth quarter. We expect to continue to grow revenue as we launch new products in 2023. including the Vet Guardian wireless vital signs monitor that launched in early July, the TrueView digital microscopy platform. Microscopy? Man, that's a very complicated word to say. Because like I know endoscopies, that's how you say endoscopy. So microscopy maybe. We plan to launch in the second quarter, and several new truforma assays planned for launch later in the year. Don't forget, truforma, they have a sort of new agreement with Corvo where they will be doing all, they no longer have to license. They just, I think they're paying a upfront amount. And because of that, they're able to have more of a revenue share off the assays that they build in the future. And also it'll be way faster. In addition, with substantial capital on hand, we continue to evaluate strategic business development options in the animal health sector to identify new opportunities to grow further through acquisitions. I think number one, this is probably the most important line in this press release. The reason I say that is when I take a look back, we talk about when Zomedica righted the course of this entire company back at the end of 2021 with the acquisition of PulseVet. They had all this cash on hand from share offerings, as a result of a huge stock price increase back in like February and March of 2021. They capitalized on that by locking in the liquidity, raising shares at the expense of shareholders. But this money at least has been going to good use. While some of it has been going, unfortunately through cash burn, which is something we can expect. For the most part, they have been buying companies. And while Truforma was meant to sort of be that golden goose egg for Zomedica, PulseVet has really been the one that's been propping up the business. And if they're able to grow further through more acquisitions, we can really see this company do fantastic when the market turns in 2023, like late 23 or early 24. I think that is very, very important. It's also really good to see that they do have significant cash on hand, so there won't be any sort of need to borrow capital. One of the problems with being in a recession is the cost of borrowing capital has skyrocketed. And that is why so many companies will go out of business because they don't have money on their books. This, however, is pretty promising. Hey, Sacrifice, how's it going? I hope you're having a good weekend. By the way, guys, let me know if you sort of prefer this sort of modality for how I do these earnings reports. I used to kind of create them by myself, but I wanted to do them live, when possible, so that if anybody has any questions, hopefully I can answer them to the best of my ability. And I also want to do more live streams because it makes it so much easier to do it. Like I plan on only spending about 20 to 30 minutes tops in here, but because I'm doing that, I don't have to wait till like later next week to actually make an earnings video, so I can get this info out to you sooner. So that's really the Zomedica earnings. And like I said, we're going to have to wait until Wednesday, March 15th to learn more and see what are their costs that are applicable to Q4, what's their net loss in Q4, what's their net loss for the year. And as I said, if we're watching just how much cash they have on hand, the amount of cash is slowly decreasing, which is a good sign because it was decreasing at a faster rate before. Zom was going good, now consolidating, I guess. Yeah, exactly, right? So like this is why it's super important to like whenever possible, swing some shares, take some profits. I was talking about that when they did that $6 price target, and we saw like I think Zomedica went to like 32, 34 cents. I sold, I think it was 3,000 shares at the time. I still have 2,000 shares left to swing, and then 10,000 shares that I'm planning to hold for like the long term. Awesome. Yeah, I love the feedback. And you know what? I have some exciting news that I will be talking about at the end of this stream as well. So thank you, Home. The other news, and I have included it in the link below. So by the way, just so you know, if you want the link to this press release for Zomedica Reports prelim results and you want to just read it yourself later on, or maybe it's small on the screen, I'm not really sure. I put the link to that in the description below. As well, tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, they are doing an interview with red chip companies and Zomedica. So we're expecting to see Larry Heaton talking about how the company is improving pet healthcare and providing new business opportunities for vets, and also talking about their current product line and the ability to acquire innovative tech and much more. I always like watching this because, sometimes you get some alpha that may not be covered in the press release, because the press release is like very heavily curated and like it has to go through like a comms department. But when you have someone present, they're sort of presenting off the cuff for the most part. So sometimes you get a little more info than you would on a press release that at this point I'm sure has gone through multiple stages of reviews and approvals before it can make it out here. Okay. Now, what is very important to recognize is February 11th, or not February 11th, sorry, 12, 13, 14. So February 14th, which is Valentine's Day, is actually the next CPI print. Now, the last CPI print was very positive, and we saw that with how the stock market and the crypto market and other assets responded. What happened was they saw that inflation was coming down, right? So this was probably very, very good news. It sort of signals that maybe the Fed knows what they're doing and they're starting to get inflation under control. Unfortunately, the expectation this time is around 6% year over year inflation. And if that really happens, so like in the past, we'd want to meet expectation. But if we meet expectation here, potentially that's a really bad sign for the Fed, because that means nope, inflation is still going up. When they did announce this on Thursday or maybe Friday, you start to see all the tech stocks sell off. So you can see on this chart, these are some of like the holes I have in my account. So like you have Nano Dimensions, you have Zomedica, you have Tesla. Tesla was down 5% on Friday, right? So if we zoom in, like let's just go to the 1-day chart for Tesla. And I'm just gonna kind of make this bigger and we'll just go through that right here. I'll just show you what I mean. So this is Tesla's chart, and you can sort of see that Tesla started the morning up here and it just started like selling off, coming down here, a low of 192. And this is really why I like TradingView, because you can sort of see everything. You can kind of see all the ranges, like every time it flipped. So like it went all the way down to here, went all the way up to here, went all the way down to here, up, down, right? So very, very interesting. But there's an expectation that likely we will see more of a sell-off on Monday as well as Tuesday. And then it really comes down to on Tuesday morning, what does the CPI print say? Like I said, long-term wise, and this is why I like buying shares, we're golden. We're not worried. In the short term, you're on a sort of roller coaster, because every time there's positive news, the stock goes up. Every time that there's negative news, it goes down. And right now, these stocks prices are more influenced by the macroeconomic sort of criteria. So like what's going on in the world more than the companies themselves. When we're not in these situations, then majority of it has to do with how well the company is doing. Zomedica right now, I'd say is probably 10 to 20 times better than when its share price was $2 a share, right? And like for sure, like part of it is also like there's way more shares in existence, almost 1 billion shares, I think, right? And I think that once we get out of a recession, we can really start to see this stock pop. And for that, we really have to see inflation under control. And the reason that's important is like that means the Fed will stop hiking rates. The moment they stop hiking rates and they sort of pivot and say, okay, now we're done, we got it all under control, then the market goes, finally, that's perfect. They probably find a bottom there. And then over time, stocks will slowly trend upwards, right? The idea here is like there's still a lot of hesitancy, right? Like once you go through this, you're not as bullish as you normally are. Whereas when we were in 2020 and you could just throw a dart, like be blindfolded. Didn't matter if you didn't know what the hell the stock was. There were people who typed in the wrong stock and even invested and still made 100, 200% because everything went up. And when everything is going up, you feel this sort of false confidence that like you can do no wrong. And when you feel like you can do no wrong, you're more aggressive, you're taking more bets, you're buying everything. And the opposite is true. When you feel like you're investing and every time you buy something it goes down, you kind of get skittish. You're like, I don't know what's going on. Maybe I don't know what's going on, so I'm not going to buy as much. So you get very skittish and you need to sort of like break out of that shell. But like I say this to everyone. If you're here right now and you're investing in stuff like Zomedica, Nano Dimensions, or other like blue chip stocks, this will be one of the hardest sort of time periods in your investing journey. And once you've gone through this, everything after will be super easy. You're going to be like, what a cakewalk. This is expensive tuition. So just be disciplined, hold on. I'm telling you, it'll be worth it. I'm not saying to sort of buy or hold Zomedica because that's financial advice. And I really can't tell you to do any of that. But I just mean hold your conviction in whatever stocks you have. I have conviction in Zomedica. Like I mentioned, I have like 12,000 shares of Zomedica right now, 10,000 of which are like hold shares, so I'm not going to sell them. I have 2,000 for swing. If Zomedica comes below like 22 cents, I'll buy 3,000 more shares. And I've been doing this repeatedly. Like if you watch this channel consistently, you should know exactly what I'm doing because I've been very upfront of it. I don't make that much on every flip, like like 300, 400, 500 bucks, but it's better than nothing and it brings my average cost down. And I just continue to see this going on. I have nothing to lose. The only thing that I don't like is when Zomedica stays flat because then I can't buy or sell, right? It's the worst. So the one thing I do want to say, and I will be starting a weekly stock live stream. Now, I work full time. I start work at 9 a.m. and most days I'm in my company's head office in downtown Toronto. But what I'm going to start doing from now on is Friday mornings at 8 a.m. Eastern before the market opens. I'm going to do like probably like maybe 1 hour, maybe 45 minutes to an hour. We'll see how it goes. Where I'll cover pretty much all stocks, all the news that's going on in the stocks that I'm invested in. And if you want something covered, feel free to come by, jump in, let's chat. I'm more than happy to discuss it there. I see a ton of comments from you guys, whether it's on live stream videos or videos I've posted in the past asking for updates. Well, here's our opportunity to do it. It won't just be focused on one stock in particular. I mean, obviously, I'm going to cover Zomedica and Nano Dimensions and Tesla when given the opportunity. But I also want to give you guys an opportunity to ask me what I think of certain stocks. We'll bring it up. We'll talk about certain events, what's going on in the macro environment. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. That's pretty much all I have in today's video. Just a friendly reminder, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe because that really helps my channel out. It tells YouTube that you want to see more of this content, so it'll push more videos to you as well as your friends and other people as well in this space. So that's pretty much it. Make sure you do that, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.